power which is already being generated from the wind power, windmills. The next, I would like to talk of the batteries. I've moved from the merchant shipping more into oil and gas and offshore support vessels. In our own fleet, we are planning to install battery as a backup. Now, the cost still doesn't permit a battery to be used for propulsion because the package is very big. This comes in a cooled, containerized package which can be stored on the deck, and as you know, offshore vessels are small in size. So what we are able to do now is to, say you have 3 generators on board, one battery bank can take away the need of the 3rd generator. So effectively, you have a battery which is supplying your deficit power during your operations. And when you are alongside, you are a completely green ship because there is no emission from the vessel at all. The battery is providing the entire power you require at shore alongside. So these two are heavily being discussed at various levels. Every conference I speak, these two are drawing the highlights. Now coming to fuel, we recently have seen, and I'll speak more about it as we go down this forum. DNV has used ammonia notation for a few PSVs in Norway. In fact, there's a company has been formed which is called Ammon Maritime, because the entire fleet by 2025 will be driven by ammonia propulsion. Whether it's going to be cost effective or not, it remains to be seen. These come at a very huge capex for ship owners, operators like us. We have spoken of LNG, which has been there for some time. It's still debatable because when we speak of the fuel, as a takeaway from this forum, probably you can note that you should not limit it to the fuel you are burning on board. You should be looking at something called W2W, wake to well. Sorry, well to wake, which means burning that green fuel on board is not enough. How are you transporting the fuel? How are you storing the fuel? In that context, LNG doesn't turn out to be number one. We have seen that large container makers are adopting LNG as fuel. I live in Singapore, and we've got a tie-up between the port of Zeebrugge and Singapore to cater to this LNG container vessels, and LNG bunkering is coming up very heavily. So the ship delivered from the Far East, large containers, 15,000, 20,000 TEU, come to Singapore, bunker, and the next bunkering will only be in port of Zeebrugge in Europe. So these are in a nutshell. I would not like much time on this. I would pass on to the next speaker, and we can always come back to these topics later. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this. I'm in complete agreement with what you said. I think the future, to a greater extent, it will move away from fossil fuel for sure. At the same time, as Sir mentioned rightly, LNG, even we look at LNG as a transient fuel. So of course, when I say we, it is more from the alpha level perspective, how we see the market, the marine market developing in the future. And what is going to come up finally, possibly could be ammonia, hydrogen, and methane. And there are a lot of tests and trials going on this front. So a lot of different things happening at the same time. And what everybody is looking at is basically energy efficiency. So any ways to save fuel at the moment as we go towards decarbonization goal is important. And perhaps a time will come in the next few years where whatever we have been learning and have learned so far in terms of conventional equipment on board, this is going to change completely. So we do see that perhaps 40 to 50% of the shipboard equipment may not remain the same in the next decade. Yeah, with this, I would pass on.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. I'm also in agreement with all the panelists, but my point of view is based on some other aspects, because basically we are ship owner, ship operator, and we have training institute as well. So basically the data, facts, we have still in very fluid state. So whatever data research we have, One, we have talked already, LPG and LNG, we have sufficient information, and STCW also has for training. Other than that, I see methanol is one, number one. Second, I see ammonia. And third is hydrogen. My basis is that safety part, because this methanol and ammonia, shipping industry, we have been carrying in bulk. So shipping industry has experience of that. What is left is the seafarers having training on the safety and hazard. Technology, yes, training, that is a different part. So we are still closer to that. Hydrogen, yes, but hydrogen flammability is very high. Explosive, very high. Ammonia toxicity is very, very bad. But having all this, methanol first, second choice is ammonia. And again, it is not that one fuel will be used for trans-ocean or coastal. Probably the time will come when the coastal ships will have different fuel. And trans-ocean will have different. So we are still getting into, research is going on and we are getting reports. IMO is also, everyone is working on this. And as the day passes, we get more facts. And then we will be able to, it is a transition, so we will be able to zero down, like. So I'll just hand over to Dr. Saab.
Thank you, sir. Respected chairperson, he's my mentor also in shipping industry. All the respected panelists, respected stakeholders from the industry, dear students and seafarers. As Madam has already laid down the tone for the today's discussion, as all of us heard that recently, just 2 days back, we have become, Earth is now carrying 8 billion people. And we are contributing around 1.421 billion as Indians. In coming year, in 2023, we will be surpassing China also. And in 2050, we will be around 1.6 billion people, Indian people on the earth. What is the good news for this? Is that around 40% of our population is lying between the age bracket of 13 to 35 years. That has been classified as youth population by Youth Survey of India, Government of India. As we have seen that in the world, there are 50,000 ships being registered in around 150 nations. And if we consider total seafarers in the world, they are coming close to 1.89 millions. Out of 1.89 millions, around 875,000 seafarers are as officers, and 1.03 million are working as training, that is a GP rating holders. So in this scenario, if you consider India's position, so in India, we are having around 550,000 registered seafarers. Out of that, 265,000 are working on the ships. And amongst that, around 85% are working on foreign flag vessels and 15% are working on Indian flag ships. We have seen that we are one of the greatest or one of the largest seafarer supplying nation. Our share in the whole world as seafarer is 12% around. And in our Maritime India Vision 2030 target, we have targeted to become 20% seafarer supplying nation in the world in 2030. So with all these things, what is more important for us is that we are entering into such a phase in which, as a young population, as new challenges, so world is waiting for us, to explore all the challenges in the world. One of the most important challenges is shipping industry. In shipping industry also we have found that we are contributing as a shipping industry 3% to the global gas emissions, global greenhouse gas emissions. So there is a very high pressure from all the corners of the industry or world to reduce this greenhouse gas emission. And IMO being the forefront in this area, they have decided to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2050. So keeping all these things in mind, what the world is doing, what government of India is doing, we have to see. I think we can come on that aspect in coming discussion, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raut. I will just take, from one of the aspects mentioned by Captain regarding the safety measures, right? So I'd like to know, besides the, the transfer of knowledge, technology, etc., how do you inculcate within a training or an education program aspects pertaining to risk and safety assessment and risk and safety management? I would request Captain Ashwini, but anybody else who can add on also.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, as we started with that, we are still at very nascent stage. For that matter, all shipping companies, we have already ISM procedures established everywhere. So internal assessment risk, that committee can be made by each operator, and we have to start working right away, a different cell. I understand many companies have already started doing that environment or whatever name they call, and they look for only the risks, hazards involved with the alternate fuel with the options of at least 3, which is likely to come. So that internal risk assessment, people have already started doing.
Captain, how do we sensitize the youngsters while they are studying towards the importance of safety and risk assessment and risk management?
Exactly. So the training part, it will be included in training part. The safety already, we have safety management system. They are being trained for safety management system. So we have to start with this, whatever risk assessment has been done, whatever data is available, that has to be incorporated in our safety training. And important is this safety culture, it takes time to grow. So that we have to start, whatever data we have available with the risk assessment, we have to start. That is how I think we should go ahead.
Yes, I would like to add here that on this just transition, there are 2 aspects to it. One is the environmental aspect and one is the social aspect. The environmental aspect is to decarbonize 50% by 2050, the GHG emissions, 100% by 2070, etc. So those are the environmental goals. Yeah. But there's a social aspect to it also. What is the social aspect? That because of this change in technology, change in the type of fuels, engines, everything, people need to be reskilled. It should not become that one segment of the seafarers working on board should be removed and another well-trained people come. So that would be injustice, that you have lost the jobs, one section has lost the jobs whereas the other has gained. So we need to upskill and reskill the people. So that's one of your key challenges as youngsters here, that you have to be abreast of the latest technology. Now currently, as I think everybody has mentioned, various technologies are coming in, but currently what is actually running is a transition phase maybe of the LNG fueled vessels. And in STCW, you have regulation 5/3, which deals with the IGF training requirement. That is the below 60% content, the fuels. So for these type of vessels, we have the IGF basic and advanced training, which has been enshrined in the STCW. But yet the technology for ammonia, Madam asked, and I think Captain Ashwini also mentioned, that it's a very toxic cargo. I mean, toxic fuel itself and the cargo itself. So you have to be extremely careful on that. So once this technology gets, perfected and ships do come out, automatically STCW will place it in the training requirement. So here STCW cannot jump the gun. First, the regulation has to come through MSc and MEPC committees in IMO, and once the technology is perfected on that aspect, then will come the training, which will follow after that. So in the same 5/3 section, you will now get added training requirements for ammonia as fuel. You will get added training requirements for methanol as fuel. And STCW, as Madam Malini Shankar mentioned, is undergoing a comprehensive revision. Every 15 years, a revised version of STCW comes out. Last was 2010, next is expected 2025. So now there will be quite a bit of change in that. So all this training extra requirement will get incorporated, and you will have to certainly keep abreast of it and undergo this additional training part. So that is a social responsibility related to the UN goals of just transition.
Captain Debu, as the students understand it, the IGF code has not yet been, it's already there. So the code has been laid down. Yeah. So the IGF code has laid down the training requirement for the crew, etc. So do any of you see a demand for those courses yet in India? Or do you see, what is the anticipated demand? Will it go up? Will it go up exponentially, or is it slowly? Because then the educational institutions have to be prepared for it, the students have to be prepared.